Hello, welcome to the Self-Learning Podcast by Dr. Sushma Singh. Let us start discussion on Unit 14, Elements of Research Design. We are continuing our topic, Structuring the Research Process, and subtopic is Consideration of Time and Resources. You need to be fully aware of the limits of your resources and also clearly define the time frame while designing your research. Unless you draw up a schedule of the different steps of your research, it is likely to become a long drawn process, which is bad for both quality and relevant. Imagine researches on cholera epidemic taking years to complete. The delay would mean poor quality research and an unchecked death rate. We also know that unless you get liberal time, your research would fall because you cannot subject social reality to overnight machine tests in the laboratory to obtain quick results. You need to evaluate the time requirement in a realistic manner and plan the strategy accordingly. Careful planning and sticking to the time schedule will help you use your resources effectively and complete the research in time. Besides, you should be aware of the limitations of your resources and plan the strategy in a realistic and cost-effective manner. If the resources are exhausted midway, it will be a severe blow to research. If an agency is funding the research, your credibility is at stake. Hence, you need to clearly state in your research design the time and resources that you have for research. You need also to foresee and note down the effects of your resource constraints on the research process. After identifying the effects, you would develop strategies to counter those you can possibly do. The account of those which cannot be managed will help future researchers to be familiar with them and deal with them in their projects. Now let us move to the next point, reviewing secondary material. The purpose of reviewing the existing literature on your research theme is to help you assess the feasibility of the project, but also to formulate an effective methodology. You would need to consult academic journals, conference proceedings, government reports, books, etc. You may review two types of literature: literature concerning the concepts and theories, and the empirical literature consisting of studies made earlier. You may come across even such studies that contain both theoretical as well as substantive aspects of your research. The outcome of the review will be that you will know about available data and other materials on the theme of your research. A more sophisticated and clearer statement of specific research questions is likely to emerge after the literature review. When researchers prepare a research design, they draw an outline of the entire research process. They need to have a clear picture of the nature of data that would help tackle the research questions. For instance, researchers decide in advance how many case studies would help them draw meaningful conclusions, or the number of life histories that they need to collect and of which categories of persons. A lot of hard work and insightful thinking goes into the process. Researchers review the past studies in their topics and work upon their research questions to arrive at a realistic research design. Scheduling the time and events to observe in the field forms an important component of your research design. This provides you a sense of direction while collecting data. This does not imply that you have to strictly follow your schedule regardless of the situation in the field. The actual field conditions do guide you, and correspondingly your research design may face unanticipated changes. Yet you cannot just land up in the field unprepared and bewildered, and hence you need to plan out the various stages and strategies of research. At the same time, you have to be ready to make adjustments according to the field exigencies. Now let us move to the next point, hypothesis. After extensive literature survey, you need to state in clear terms the working hypothesis or hypothesis. The hypothesis is a tentative assumption made in order to test its logical or empirical consequences. You may define a hypothesis as a proposition or a set of propositions set forth as an explanation for the occurrence of some specified phenomena, either asserted merely as a provisional conjecture to guide some investigation or accepted as highly probable in the light of established facts. A hypothesis may seem contrary to the real situation. It may prove to be correct or incorrect. In any event, it leads to an empirical test. Your hypothesis needs to be clear and precise and capable of being tested. It is to be limited in scope and consistent with known or established facts, and should be amenable to testing within the stipulated time. I needs to explain what it claims to explain and should have empirical reference. A hypothesis may have variables, and it may be looking for the nature of the relationship between the variables. The variables are empirical properties that take two or more values. For the purpose of research, you need to make a distinction between the dependent and independent variables. The variables that you wish to explain are regarded as dependent variables or criteria variables. The other variable expected to explain the change in the dependent variable is referred to as an independent variable or predictor variable. The dependent variable is expected outcome of the independent variable, and independent variables produce dependent variables. Variables can have three types of relationship among them. A positive relationship is one where an increase in one variable leads to an increase in another. A negative relationship is one where an increase in one variable leads to the decrease in another element. Finally, a zero relationship is one which shows no significant relationship between two variables. Such a distinction between the dependent and independent variables is analytical and relates only to the research purpose. It needs to be mentioned that the formulation of hypotheses is not always a part of the research process. You may carry out explanatory research when you do not have sufficient knowledge of the situation to prepare a hypothesis. Now let us wind up the session and take rest. Thank you very much for engaging yourself with the Self-Learning Podcast.